next we'll discuss the different constraints that we can place while creating tables. Suppose I'm creating a table here. Create table called student, and I want to create some attributes like ID, which is an int, name, which is a variable character of size 20, then the age of the student, which is again int, followed by his project mentor. We can take the project mentor ID, which is again a variable character. Okay, its ID is an int, so int. So I have created the table now. You can just see by clicking on it. Sorry, I have to first use the database. So once I use database, and the database will be bold. Now I can insert the create the table. So table has been created. Now let us see the description for this table. Describe student. So we can clearly see that here you can clearly see that the null is set as S. That is, if you don't give any value to store, then by default null will be stored. For example, even you can see in the default, it's clearly mentioned that default is null. So let me try to insert some values into the table. Insert into student. I'll not insert all the values. What I'll insert is, sometimes it does happen, we forget to insert some data. So I inserted the ID and age, or I forgot, I just inserted the name of the student and his age, and I forgot all other details. So if I take values, and if I just give the name of the student as Varma and his age as 20. So this is not a proper insertion, because I am inserting the record of a student without the ID. But still the table will accept it, the record is accepted. So if I just go and try to see what has been recorded into the table, I can clearly see that the ID has been taken by default as null, mentor ID has been taken default as null. So this is not a proper way to insert record. So I have to place some constraints. If an user forgets to give some data, it should not accept it. So how will I do it? I have to place a constraint. So this I'll do one thing. I'll drop this table. I'll again create with the constraints null, with the null constraint. So what I'll do, I will make that int ID cannot be null. Similarly, I'll tell that it cannot be null, age cannot be null, and mentor ID cannot be null. Now when I create this table now, let me go to the description of the student table. Here I can again see that null has been mentioned as no. Okay, null has been mentioned as no. So if I try to insert any field without any value, it will throw me an error, because it cannot be null. So again, let me try to insert into student this record. Now I have clearly got an error that field ID means does not have a default. Okay, So it is not possible to insert without entering all the records, so all the attributes. So now I'll give uh, the ID of the student and the faculty ID. Now it will accept. So if I go, I'll check the record has been entered. So this is how we use not null to place a constraint uh, that if anybody forgets to insert any attribute, it will throw an error. Now, also one more thing, the age of a student, you have to place another constraint on the age of the student. What is the constraint? Age of the student cannot be negative, or age of the student has to be above certain age, right? If a student is joining a university, he has to be at least of certain age. So we have to place some constraint on it. So for that we use the check constraint. So for that again what I'll do, I'll drop this table and I'll try to create the table with a check constraint on the age. So what is the check? I'll place a constraint that the age should be at least greater than 16. So whoever are joining the university should be of minimum is 16. So now if I run the table, if I create the table will be created. Now I cannot insert any record without with the age less than 16. Suppose if I take 15 or 16, it will throw an error that I am violating a age constraint. See, I got an error here to say that that age has been violated. This has been violated. So it will only allow me to insert only if it is greater than 16. Only then I will be able to insert the record. So this is the check constraint. The third constraint that we can use is called the default. Sometimes what happens, we forget to insert some values. So we want to have some default value. For example, the student's project mentor, I forgot to mention his ID. So in that case, what will happen? I want to keep some default mentor ID so that it will be assigned to him. So what I'll do, I'll just mention that default, by default, it will be assigned. In case if I forget to insert the detail, it will be inserted to a faculty. Now let me first drop the table, then I'll again create it. Of course I can use alter also, but I'm just showing it like this. Now suppose if I forget to insert, to provide the ID of the mentor, I'll just give the student ID, his name and age, and I will not provide the mentor ID, but it will accept. For example, let me see. So now let me check what values have been stored into the table. So you can see the default mentor ID has been stored as 10678, which I have given. Okay, so this is the default. So default can be used this way. Next is the primary key. Primary key is what? Primary key is something. It cannot accept duplicates and it cannot be null. So these are the two things for a primary key. For example, the ID of a student, it has to be unique for every student and it cannot be null also. So what I will do, I will just remove this. I will mention that the primary key is the ID in the table. The primary key for this table is ID. So primary key will be unique for every record and it cannot be null. So these are the two things. So let me drop the table and again create some records. So I am creating the record of a student. Let me create the table first. So I created with the primary key as the ID. Now I'll create a few records. 10897. This is one record. Now I'll try to create a duplicate with the same roll number of another student. So two students cannot have the same ID, right? So let me try to insert this record into the table. Say I got an error that the error says that duplicate entry for key student primary. So since that's a primary key, it will not allow duplicates, nor will it allow null. So it helps us to uniquely identify a record in a table. Now we want to link two tables. Okay. So for that we need so we need to suppose two tables are there which are linked to each other through some attribute, and we should not destroy that link. So how to do it? We'll place a foreign key. So so foreign key is what? Foreign key is a field in one table that refers to the primary key of another table. So for that I'll create two tables. Let me drop student first. What I'll do? I'll create a faculty table also. Create faculty. Create table faculty. Faculty has a ID which is an int, and obviously it will be the primary key for this, and it will be a name varchar 20 which is not null, and then I can set his department, okay, which is again varchar is 50. So in this table the primary key will be the ID of the faculty, so I have created there is some mistake. Okay. Okay, so the faculty table has been created. Now what I want to do, I want to make the mentor ID of the student table linked with the faculty ID of the faculty table. So how will I do it? I will do it by mentioning that by creating a foreign key in the student table. So foreign key of student table is what? Is a mentor ID which is refers which references to faculty tables ID. It references to the primary key of the faculty table. Okay. So now I will be able to run it. So this will help me to create a link between student table and faculty table. So thus the link has been created.